it's me, Mike, with HPDS. This video will be a reading and a study of Exodus 36. Before I get started, I will, of course, read the Lord's Prayer. And it reads, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. So, of course, if you remember where we're at, Exodus 36, in the previous chapter, Exodus 35, the people started giving the offerings for the tabernacle. So the Lord made the request for people to bring the offerings, the willing offerings, and then people started bringing it. And of course, this was all for the construction of the tabernacle that was described back in Exodus 25 through 30. So that's basically where we're at now. This is after, remember, Exodus. They left Egypt. There was the 10 plagues. They wandered around. They came to Mount Sinai. They were given the 10 commandments. Then all of a sudden they started idol worshiping. So when Moses came down, he broke those 10 commandments. There was some punishment for this idol worship, the golden calf, back in Exodus chapter 32. Exodus 32 was the golden calf. And so since then, they renewed the covenant. God came and passed by Moses. Moses' face started shining really brightly. It was an interesting time for them. Hold on just one moment before I get started. But so that is where we're at now. So in this particular chapter, we're going to go ahead and get into Exodus 36, in which the construction begins. So they gave the offerings in 35. Now they're going to go ahead and let's go ahead and show this. Exodus 36, construction begins. That is what this chapter will be focusing on. And what we're going to be looking for in this chapter is verses 1 through 4. We're going to see that the workmen received these offerings. So from the previous chapter, and of course in verses 5 through 7, there's going to prove to be an abundance of offerings. And in verses 8 through 13, we're going to see the curtains of fine linen. Verses 14 through 18, we're going to see the curtains of goat's hairs. Verses 19 through 30, we'll see the coverings and the boards. Verses 31 through 34, the bars of shittim wood. Verses 35, the veil of fine linen. And of course, the ending out, verses 36 through 38, the pillars of shittim wood. And of course, this is all from, if you remember, chapters 25 through 30. So that's where all these things were first. That's when God first he gave them the plans and he told them how they would build it in those chapters. So let's go ahead and move into it now. What I'll do as normal is I'll read through the chapter fully. I'll just read straight through it. And then afterwards, with the help of the Holy Spirit, I'll reread it line by line and kind of break it down further to see what exactly is going on and see how it relates, of course, to the overall big picture of what is going on in the book of Exodus. So I'll go ahead and get started with reading it now. And it reads, Then wrought Bezaleel and Aholiab and every wise-hearted man in whom the Lord put wisdom and understanding to know how to work all manner of work for the service of the sanctuary, according to all that the Lord had commanded. And Moses called Bezaleel and Aholiab and every wise-hearted man in whose heart the Lord had put wisdom, even every one whose heart stirred him up to come unto the work to do it. And they received of Moses all the offering, which the children of Israel had brought for the work of the service of the sanctuary, to make it withal. And they brought yet unto him free offerings every morning. And all the wise men that wrought all the work of the sanctuary came every man from his work which they made. And they spake unto Moses, saying, The people bring much more than enough for the service of the work which the Lord commanded to make. And Moses gave commandment, and they caused it to be proclaimed throughout the camp, saying, Let neither man nor woman make any more work for the offering of the sanctuary. So the people were restrained from bringing. For the stuff they had was sufficient for all the work to make it, and too much. And every wise-hearted man among them that wrought the work of the tabernacle made 10 curtains of fine twined linen, and blue, and purple, and scarlet, with cherubims of cunning work made he them. The length of one curtain was 28 cubits, and the breadth of one curtain 4 cubits. The curtains were all of one size. And he coupled the 5 curtains unto one another, and the other 5 curtains he coupled one unto another. And he made loops of blue on the edge of one curtain from the selvage in the coupling. Likewise he made in the uttermost side of another curtain in the coupling of the second. 50 loops made he in one curtain, and 50 loops made he in the edge of the curtain which was in the coupling of the second. The loops held one curtain to another. And he made 50 taches of gold, and coupled the curtains one unto another with the taches. So it became one tabernacle. And he made curtains of goat's hair for the tent over the tabernacle. 11 curtains he made them. The length of one curtain was 30 cubits, and 4 cubits was the breadth of one curtain. The 11 curtains were of one size, and he coupled 5 curtains by themselves, and 6 curtains by themselves. And he made 50 loops upon the uttermost edge of the curtain in the coupling, and 50 loops made he upon the edge of the curtain which coupleth the second. And he made 50 taches of brass to couple the tent together, that it might be one. And he made a covering for the tent of rams' skins dyed red, and a covering of badger skins above that. And he made boards for the tabernacle of shittim wood, standing up. The length of a board was 10 cubits, and the breadth of a board 1 cubit and a half. One board had 2 tenons, equally distant from one another. Thus did he make for all the boards of the tabernacle. And he made boards for the tabernacle, 20 boards for the south side southward. And 40 sockets of silver he made under the 20 boards, 2 sockets under one board for his 2 tenons, and 2 sockets under another board for his 2 tenons. And for the other side of the tabernacle, which is toward the north corner, he made 20 boards. And there 40 sockets of silver, 2 sockets under one board, and 2 sockets under another board. And for the sides of the tabernacle westward he made 6 boards. And 2 boards made he for the corners of the tabernacle in the 2 sides. And they were coupled beneath and coupled together at the head thereof to one ring. Thus he did to both of them in both the corners. And there were 8 boards, and their sockets were 16 sockets of silver, under every board 2 sockets. And he made bars of shittim wood, 5 for the boards of the one side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the boards of the other side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the boards of the tabernacle for the sides westward. And he made the middle bar to shoot through the boards from the one end to the other. And he overlaid the boards with gold, and made their rings of gold to be places for the bars, and overlaid the bars with gold. And he made a veil of blue and purple and scarlet, and fine twined linen with cherubims made he it of cunning work. And he made thereunto 4 pillars of shittim wood, and overlaid them with gold. Their hooks were of gold, and he cast for them 4 sockets of silver. And he made an hanging for the tabernacle door of blue and purple and scarlet, and fine twined linen of needlework. And the 5 pillars of it with their hooks, and he overlaid their chapiters and their fillets with gold, but their 5 sockets were of brass. Okay, that was, of course, Exodus in Exodus 36 in its entirety. So let's see. From there, what did we read? Okay, if you remember, of course. And what I'll go ahead and do is I'll go ahead and bring up I should always try to do this, which I don't, but I will. Here we see this chapter, what we're looking for. The workmen received the offering. So that's, remember, this is what we read through. The workmen got the offerings, and remember, there was an abundance of offerings, so much so that, of course, they had to stop. He had to stop. They had to tell the people to stop giving the offerings. And then we went on to read quite a bit of the curtains of fine linen, the curtains of goat hairs, the coverings and the boards, the bars of shittim wood, the veil of fine linen. It started getting real precise about what is going on here. And I've got a few pictures. These were pictures that I did show in those other chapters back when they were Exodus 26, Exodus 25. But we see here the different pieces of linen. This is a cross section of what this temple would have looked like. We got the boards, we've got the curtains, we've got all the goat skin, and so forth. So I've got a few more pictures, and I will show those up as I read through it. But now I will go ahead and just read through it again, and we'll see. Like I said, I'll go line by line, and this chapter is filled with some more technical things. This is very technical, or at least it's construction wise. So it is detailed plans, and so it is just a very detailed plan of what they're building here. So that's what we're going over in this chapter. So then wrought Bezaleel and Aholiab, and every wise-hearted man, in whom the Lord put wisdom and understanding to know how to work all manner of work for the service of the sanctuary, according to all that the Lord had commanded. So remember, Bezaleel and Aholiab were mentioned back in Exodus 35, towards the end of Exodus 35, when that was the last section of 35. If you remember, the tabernacle workmen were chosen, and these were those these men that there's Aholiab right here, and above that we saw Bezaleel. So these were chosen in the last chapter. They were called out by name by the Lord to be these men in charge of it, and of course we see them and they're calling every wise-hearted man. So keep that in mind, that this making things is something that takes someone that's wise, takes wisdom. So you have to be kind of wise in order to create, and that's true to this day. A lot of people are just mostly consumers and not producers, and we have a lot of machines doing most of the work for us nowadays. Everything's constructed in such a way, but these people were still doing it by hand. Of course, they had machines, though, and contraptions. So that's also the thing, is keep that in mind. They had contraptions and so forth. They may not have had the fancy machines that we have today or the large machines, but they did have contraptions to help them build. So they were clever devices, as God had called them. And so continuing on, and Moses called Bezaleel and Aholiab and every wise-hearted man. So all these wise people are getting together, and it was all, remember that wisdom comes from the Lord. The Lord is the one that puts wisdom in our hearts. Even everyone whose heart stirred him up to come into the work to do it. So the Lord is telling us that this wisdom comes from Him. Keep that in mind. These people they've got it after all that they've been through now, leaving Egypt, coming out to the mountain, seeing what they've seen, being what they've been through. All of a sudden, they're all stirred up to start this great creation. They're building. Remember, they've just accepted the Lord as their king, as their, and as their people. They've become His people. They've renewed this covenant. They're going to go inherit a land. And here they are building their temple, so that this God that they have seen, which has been this fire cloud by night and this cloud pillar by day, and he's set the mountain on fire, and he's caused the earthquakes, and they saw all kinds of, I believe, I'm pretty sure I already went over it, but they saw him, when they went up to the mountain, they saw I already forget what it was called, the ground underneath the Lord's feet. So they saw that covering in between heaven and earth, basically, that separated God, the Lord, from the humans, and they saw Him up there. So they've seen a lot of things, and they know He's there, and now they're telling Him, He's telling them, the Lord is telling the people that I'm going to go into the temple, and it's going to be my temple. There it is. Remember, that's what we saw. That's what we're seeing. So, and they received, let's see, verses 1 through 4, the workmen received. So we're still receiving these offerings. And of course, it goes on. So Moses and Bezalel and all these people, they're all stirred up to make this great creation. And they start receiving these offerings from the people. And they received of Moses all of the offering which the children of Israel brought for the work of the service of the sanctuary to make it withal. So remember, this was all for the purpose of the sanctuary, the tabernacle. And they brought yet unto him free offerings every morning. So everybody's just giving him stuff to, like a country would do. This is exactly what countries do. We know society and so forth. They're giving the offerings, and Moses here is basically the head of the government that has been appointed by the king, which is the Lord. The Lord has told Moses what to do as his servant, and Moses, basically the high servant, is doing everything, and everybody's giving him, and he's distributing to the families of Levi and everything, and all these people that are doing the construction and so forth. And all the wise men that wrought all the work of the sanctuary came every man from his work which they made. So, yep, everybody started doing things, and that's what they did. They started doing things. They wrought and they started working on the sanctuary. So, moving on, 5 through 7, we're going to see the abundance. And they spake unto Moses, saying, the people bring much more than enough for the service of the work which the Lord commanded to make. So, you're seeing that right away, these people, even though everything they've been through, they have a lot of things. They're very rich. Remember, the Lord had told them back when they were leaving Egypt that they would they would plunder the people, and sure enough, that's what they did. They left with all kinds of the people of Egypt. Basically, at a certain point, were just giving them stuff, and they were treating them very favorably because they saw all the bad things that they went through. And they knew it was because of the Lord, and because the children of Israel were his people. They knew it. They saw it, and they that was the only way they knew how to ask for forgiveness, was basically give them stuff. Here you go. And that's what they have now. They have a bunch of things. And Moses gave commandments, and they caused it to be proclaimed throughout the camp, saying, let neither man nor woman make any more work for the offering of the sanctuary. So the people were restrained from bringing. So that's what Moses is doing. He said, we got a lot of stuff. In fact, we got more than we're going to need to build this tabernacle. So don't let any more people make any more offerings for the sanctuary. You had to limit it. That's how much people wanted to give. For the stuff they had was sufficient for all the work to make it, and too much. See, too much. And every wise-hearted man among them that wrought the work of the tabernacle made 10 curtains of fine linen. So here we are moving in verses 8 through 13, the curtains of fine linen. So, and blue and purple and scarlet with cherubims of cunning work he made them. And remember, that's 8 through 13. Let's see, 9. The length of one curtain was 20 cubits, and the breadth of one curtain 4 cubits. The curtains were all of one size. So these aren't, a 28 cubits. So every cubit is basically a foot and a half. So 28 plus half of that would be something, 28 plus another, what's half of 28? 14. So basically 42 feet and like 6 feet high. So they were pretty long. And you see that he coupled 5 curtains unto one another, and the other 5 curtains he coupled one unto another. And so I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, I have a few pictures here. You can see this is that tabernacle. These are just cutouts. But you could see these are they had a linen, they had the cherubims right here on these linens. But they also had, back here, and we'll read about that, the veil of fine linen that was later on. So these are all the curtains and all the coverings that they're talking about. And this is what ultimately it was constructed to look like. Something along these lines. And you see the ram skins dyed red, the goat's hair, the fine twined linen. So you see how the fine twined linen served as a covering, but also it was over. And here underneath it, we have all the boards that we're also going to be reading about in this chapter. So So yeah, they were pretty long, and he coupled the 5 curtains. And like I said, I'm not really going to get into too much detail. I'm going to skim over a lot of this because I'm going to use these pictures are mostly going to serve as what it looks like. Everything. This is where the people were making the temple, and God, the Lord, the creator of all things himself, was going to dwell among this place with the people. So that's why this is so important. But other than that, the fine details, unfortunately, we don't have this. And I know, in the future they will build this temple again, or they'll build the temple anyway. This is the tabernacle before the people built the temple later on. Of course, that's further down into the Bible, what they do and what they create and so forth. But this is the tabernacle, and that's what it looks like. And so I'm just kind of going to go over this as kind of quickly because there are the details. And like I said, we don't have this anymore. It's not around. This was something that the people, the children of Israel, got to witness, and it was for them, for their need. God, the Lord, did it for them. We, however, have other things. I've got the Bible, and I've got these pictures and these depictions, just as everybody else does right now. These depictions of what it looked like based off of these directions and these instructions that we're reading through right now. And of course, and he made loops of blue on the edge of one curtain from the selvage in the coupling. Likewise, he made the uttermost side of another curtain in the coupling of the second. And like I said, I'm not too clear, you may not see that, but he's clearly attaching these somehow. They're very long. You can see these are 40-something feet, 42 feet by like 6 feet wide. And so you could see he would couple them together right there. So they couple together. So you can kind of see it right here, right where my hand is, or right where the mouse is. It's kind of, you can see that's where they would be attached. And all those couplings would be coupled together, it looks like. Or it seems like 50 loops. See, he would make the loops, and that's where they would couple. 50 loops. And did I read this one? Yep. In the coupler, and he made 50 taches of gold and coupled the curtains one to another with the taches, so it became one tabernacle. So you see, all this he's making out of gold. They're making out of, they're making fine linen. They're putting pictures on them, cherubims. So you notice how they've got cherubims on these. You see, they've got designs and stuff. So they were the real aspect of this. The real thing that I really would point out is that they knew how to create. They weren't dumb people. They weren't cavemen, as we would call it. These people were civilized, as much so as we are. They had the abilities to make really beautiful structures. After all, this is just a tent, mind you. And he made curtains of goat's hair for the tent over the tabernacle. 11 curtains he made them. And of course, that goes into these pictures. I believe you can see these, the ram skins, the goat's hair. So over these fine twined linens, there was even more coverings. You see, there was more coverings, which is interesting because this is how it looked. It had coverings. This was a tent, and this is God's tabernacle. Why, you would have to look at this and wonder why this was the design. And honestly, I couldn't tell you right now, just based off of, just my first early, in-depth studies of this, but clearly it's a tent. It's a tent. They're going to be moving it around in the future. This wasn't the final location. This was just at the mountain, and God was going to be leading them with his presence. And remember, he wasn't going to go in there anymore. Remember how he said after the whole issue from chapter 32, he told them that he was going to send his angel. And so that's why in chapter 33, I believe, Moses was kind of concerned about, well, if you don't go with us, then nothing's going to, please don't send us without you, because we won't be able to do it. And God said, you know what, I will go. I'll send my presence. And he was basically saying he's going to send an angel. And then in chapter 34, that's when the Lord actually came, and or was it in chapter 33, I believe? I think it was chapter 33. He stood there and he came face to face with the Lord. He remembered the cloud came in front of this, and he kind of met with him. And then later on at the end of the book, we'll end up seeing how when God finally goes in there. So he doesn't continue forth like he was with the clouds of pillars and the fire in the sky, but he is going to dwell in this tabernacle, and he's dwelling covered up, mind you. Keep that. He's real covered up, and remember, it's because he's these people they made him angry. And so it seems this is why he was going to do this, is he's going to go inside this tent, and it's very covered, and it's multi-covered. It's very well covered. I would imagine it'd be very dark in there. Keep that in mind. It would probably be very dark in the back. Once you walked in, it would be very dark back here, or it's supposed to be dark back here. And remember, Moses' face was shining. So Moses would go in here and his face would be shining, and it's completely dark, and the only light coming in would be the light of the menorah. So they were supposed to be keeping this oil. They're going to have to be keeping it lit, all the time, 24/7, with the incense going. So it's really dark in there. It's probably really insulated. Obviously, it would be really warm and interesting. I would think it would be warm. I don't really know the temperature and the climate out there in Israel, whether it snows or if they have cold winters or not, but it would be warm. I would think it'd be insulated, and it's dark, and this would be the light that God demanded be on. And Moses' face was shining. So that's just all things to I just, not really, putting too much focus or attention on, but I would say these are all interesting things. So verses 14 through 18 are the curtains of goat's hair. So remember, these are the curtains. And he made curtains of goat's hairs, and I read that, I believe. 11 curtains he made them. The length of one curtain was 30 cubits, and 4 cubits was the breadth in one curtain. The 11 curtains were of one size. And he coupled 5 curtains by themselves, and 6 curtains by themselves. And he made 50 loops upon the uttermost edge of the curtains in the coupling, and 50 loops made he upon the edge of the curtain, which coupled the second. And he made 50 taches of brass to couple the tent together, that it might be one. So you see, they're making a very big covering out of these different materials, and they're making several different coverings as part of this tent. Because that was 14 through 18, and now we're going to read 19 through 30, the coverings and the boards. So, and he made for a covering for the tent of ram's skins dyed red, and a covering of badger's skin above that. So you see, this is rams and badgers. I imagine that's pretty, I don't know what their skin is like, but it would be like some sort of fur, I would imagine, or something like that. And he made boards for the tabernacle of shittim wood standing up. The length of a board was 10 cubits, and the breadth of a board 1 cubit and a half. So these are the boards that we're seeing. Remember, basically, these are the boards. They're 10 cubits tall and 1.5 cubits, right? Is that what it's saying? 1.5 cubits. So basically, 10 cubits are basically 15 feet tall and like 3 feet or something wide. And the board had 2 tenons equally distant. Thus did he make for all the boards of the tabernacle. And he made boards for the tabernacle, 20 boards for the south side, southward, and 40 sockets of silver he made under the 20 boards. So you can really determine how long. So now we know how long they were and how tall they were, how wide they were. And he's saying that for the south side, he put 20 boards. So 20 boards at like 3 feet. And I'm just guessing at 3 feet. I'm not sure that's so about 60 feet on the south side is how, on just the south side. And so it's a pretty wide, it's a pretty big structure. It's a pretty big tent, at least 60 feet on one side. It's not a small structure, even though it's pretty big, even in today's standards. I would say it's pretty big, like a pretty good sized building, even though it's 15 feet tall on its own. Keep that in mind. Let's see, and 40 sockets. So I read all this. He made 20 boards and they're 40 sockets. Yeah, I made all this. 24. So he's also, let's see, 20 boards and 40 sockets of silver, 2 sockets under one board. So he's also connecting them with silver, and that's what I was saying. It was a very expensive structure, and I made mention of all that back in Exodus 25 to 30. I guess this is what I'm looking at. We would be looking at these kinds of things. So it had some sort of rods that they ended up putting through that attached to these boards. And that's kind of what we're going to, like I said, it's right here, 2 sockets, and for the sides, he made 6 boards. And so you could see all the different, you could see the directions and how do I say this? The plans, right? It's reading it out, and these are the plans, and that's why these pictures are pretty detailed, and the pictures are all relatively the same. They're not completely, but you can see these ones also have those the silver and those tashes or whatever it calls them, these connectors every board. You see they're very similar, even though they're not quite entirely the same. You can even see them here, right here. So these instructions are very detailed, and like I said, they are um, almost 4,000 years old, and it just goes to show you what kind of technology they had back then, and what kind of things were possible back then, and what kind of things actually happened in those times. And you could take that into consideration, thinking about this day and age and how we're living in this modern world, as we so call it. But I'm gonna go ahead and skip forward, I guess, to verse what? I'll go ahead and just jump to two boards 29. They were coupled beneath. Let's see, verse 30. And they were 8 boards on their sockets, or 16 sockets of silver. Under every board 2 sockets. And he made bars of shittim wood. So I guess moving on to verse 31 to 34, the bars of shittim wood. For the bars on the one side, and the 5 bars of the bar, and the 5 bars of the board, let's see, westward. And he made the middle bar to shoot through the boards from the one end to the other. And he overlaid the boards with gold, and made their rings of gold to be places for the bars, and overlaid the bars with gold. So you could see, I guess, what this is getting at, and I'm pointing this out now because I haven't really much said it. But if you notice on the furniture, remember, here's the Ark of the Covenant. He had these staves that went through these, just like we're already seeing on these boards that make the tabernacle. These were staves so that people can pick them up and carry them. You could have people standing in front and behind, and they'd pick it up and they'd walk with it. And you could see this table. There's a few pieces of furniture, and then even on the outside of the tabernacle. But here, that's what's going on on the actual building of this tabernacle. You can see it on, I think you can see it on this picture better. You have these kinds of boards, these that are popping out, and these will be used, I don't know, to hold it up, but it also looks like people will be able to, well, I don't know if they'll pick it up, because that'd be pretty heavy. All these boards would be lifted. They were all very expensive, and they were all overlaid with gold, but that's what they look like, these bars. I'm not, that's just what they look like. That's kind of on the outside. That's what this is, but it was a very expensive, a lot of gold, a lot of silver, and that's, I feel like, what this is really getting into. And he made a veil of blue and purple and scarlet and fine twined linen with cherubims. This is the veil, verses 35. That veil, of course, is, I believe that's the veil that separates the most holy of holy space. Remember, this was the holy of holy places. So people would walk in, and back here was where God convened with the priest. Back here, where Moses would go to go speak with God with this, and so forth. And he made unto therefore 4 pillars of shittim wood, and overlaid them with gold. Their hooks were of gold, and he cast for them 4 sockets of silver. And he made an hanging for the tabernacle door of blue and purple and scarlet, and fine twined linen of needlework, and the 5 pillars of it with their hooks. And he overlaid their chapiters and their fillets with gold, but their 5 sockets were of brass. So that's the end of Exodus 36. And again, it's a complicated chapter because it is detailed plans of a building that was constructed. And so I don't actually have the building, and I don't have anything to really go off of other than the pictures. So that's why it seems even more confusing, in my opinion, because I don't also understand always the purpose of, why God would have chosen it this way, but this is what it is explaining. So that's why we're studying the Bible, to see what was going on and why it was done like this and so forth. And these are all things that will play out throughout the rest of the books of the Bible, because the people do keep this tabernacle for many years until they opt for a temple under a king that they asked for, a human king that they and that's all things that again come out in Samuel and in the book of Kings and so forth. But I will go ahead and end this video here. This is that was Exodus 36, and as usual, like I say, if you like what I'm doing, please like and subscribe. Like the video and subscribe to the channel for future chapter by chapter Bible study. And I pray, if anybody, whoever may be watching this, God bless you. To whoever may be watching this, I pray that we all bless Jesus Christ and that Jesus Christ blesses all of us. Amen.